Every name has a story, and behind every story is a human life. This video is about one name that deserves to be remembered. Carol Ann Rofstad was 21 years old when her life was stolen from her on Christmas Eve, 1975. She was a college student, a sorority sister, a daughter, a friend. She had dreams and plans and a whole future ahead of her. But on a freezing December night in Normal, Illinois, someone decided that Carol's story would end before it really had a chance to begin. And what makes this tragedy even more heartbreaking is that nearly 50 years later, her killer has never been brought to justice. Her name appears on a crime blotter somewhere in a dusty file, but there's no memorial for her on the campus where she died. No plaque, no tree, nothing to tell the students who walk those same paths today that a young woman named Carol once walked there too, and that she deserves to be remembered. It was December 22nd, 1975. Christmas was just 3 days away, and the campus of Illinois State University was winding down for the holiday break. Students were finishing their last exams, packing their bags, making plans to head home to their families. Carol Rofstad had spent the evening with her best friend, probably talking about their Christmas plans, maybe exchanging gifts early, doing all the normal things that college friends do when they're about to be separated for a few weeks. When the night ended, Carol said goodbye and started walking back to the Delta Zeta sorority house. It wasn't a long walk. She was just steps away from her home, from safety, from her bed where she should have been able to sleep peacefully that night. But Carol never made it inside. Someone was waiting in the darkness. Someone attacked her with such brutal force that she was beaten over the head and left lying in the cold. Imagine that for a moment. A young woman just trying to get home, struck down mere feet from her front door. And then the attacker simply walked away, leaving her there to die in the freezing December night. Carol lay there in the cold for as long as 12 hours. 12 hours. While she was lying there, bleeding and unconscious, life went on around her. People slept in their warm beds. The world kept turning. And Carol was alone in the darkness, fighting for her life without even knowing it. The next morning, someone finally heard something, a faint moaning sound. When they found Carol, she was barely alive. Emergency responders rushed her to the hospital where doctors performed emergency surgery, trying desperately to save her life. They put her on life support using all the medical technology available in 1975. But it wasn't enough. The injuries were too severe. The attack had been too vicious. For 2 days, Carol clung to life while her family and friends prayed for a miracle. But on December 24th, Christmas Eve, Carol Ann Rofstad died. She was just 21 years old. While families across America were gathering around Christmas trees, exchanging presents, singing carols, and celebrating together, Carol's family was saying goodbye to their daughter forever. Think about what that means. Carol's last conscious moments were probably filled with confusion and terror. She never got to celebrate another Christmas. She never got to graduate from college. She never got to pursue her career, fall in love, get married, have children, grow old. All of those possibilities, all of those potential memories and experiences were stolen from her in one violent moment, and her family has had to live with that loss for nearly 50 years. Every Christmas since 1975 has been a reminder of what they lost. Every December 24th, they remember the day Carol died. The holiday season, which should be a time of joy and togetherness, became forever marked by grief. But here's what makes Carol's story even more tragic and infuriating. Her murder remains unsolved. The person who killed her has never been caught. They've never been arrested, never been interrogated, never been held accountable for what they did. They've been free to live their life for the past 5 decades while Carol has been in the ground. And it's not because there aren't any leads. It's not because this is some mysterious case with no evidence and no suspects. According to a 2-year investigation into Carol's death, there is a prime suspect. Someone who should have been looked at closely from the very beginning. Someone who is still alive today. The investigation uncovered something deeply disturbing. The handling of Carol's case was marked by countless mistakes, missteps, and missed opportunities. Some people might even call it malpractice on the part of local law enforcement. We're not talking about a case from the 1800s where forensic science didn't exist and investigative techniques were primitive. This happened in 1975. Police had the tools and knowledge to investigate murders properly. But somewhere along the way, things went wrong. Evidence wasn't properly collected or preserved. Leads weren't followed up on. Questions that should have been asked weren't asked. And a killer was allowed to slip through the cracks. What's particularly painful is that this prime suspect has never even been properly interrogated. Think about that. There's someone out there who investigators believe could be responsible for Carol's death, and that person has never been brought in for serious questioning. They've never had to sit across from a detective and explain where they were that night, what they were doing, why their name keeps coming up in connection with this case. They've just been allowed to go on living their life as if nothing happened, as if Carol's life didn't matter, as if justice is optional. And Illinois State University has never publicly acknowledged Carol's death. Students walk across that campus every single day, completely unaware that one of their fellow students was murdered there. There's no memorial, no recognition, nothing to indicate that a tragedy occurred on that spot. It's as if the university wants to pretend it never happened. Maybe they think that acknowledging it would be bad for their image, or that it would scare prospective students. But by staying silent, they're doing something far worse. They're erasing Carol from history. They're sending a message that her life and her death don't matter enough to be remembered. Carol was a member of Delta Zeta sorority. She had sisters who cared about her, friends who loved her, professors who taught her, classmates who studied with her. She was part of a community. She belonged somewhere. And that community has a responsibility to remember her, to honor her, to keep her story alive. Because when we forget the victims, when we let their names fade into obscurity, we're giving their killers exactly what they want. We're letting them win. The fact that this case remains unsolved after nearly 50 years is a failure of the justice system. It's a failure of law enforcement. It's a failure of everyone who had the power to do something and chose not to. Carol's family has had to live with this injustice for decades. They've had to watch as other cases got solved, as other families got closure, while they were left with nothing but questions and grief. They've had to wonder every single day who killed their daughter and why that person is still free. They've had to live with the knowledge that somewhere out there, Carol's killer is walking around, maybe living a normal life, maybe even feeling safe because they think they got away with it. But here's the thing about cold cases. They're only cold until someone decides to heat them up again. Advances in forensic technology have solved murders that happened decades ago. DNA evidence that couldn't be properly analyzed in the 1970s can now provide definitive answers. Witnesses who were too scared to come forward back then might be willing to talk now. People who were protecting someone might have had a change of heart. The passage of time doesn't always work in a killer's favor. Sometimes it works against them. And public attention can make a huge difference. When people start asking questions, when a case gets media coverage, when pressure builds on law enforcement to take another look, things can happen. Cold cases have been solved because someone saw a documentary or heard a podcast or read an article and suddenly remembered something important. Or maybe they finally found the courage to share what they knew. Or maybe the attention made investigators realize they needed to prioritize the case again. Justice delayed doesn't have to mean justice denied forever. Carol's story matters because every victim matters. It matters because she was a real person with hopes and dreams and people who loved her. It matters because her family deserves answers. It matters because her killer should not get to live out their life in peace while Carol is in the grave. And it matters because if we don't demand justice for Carol, we're sending a message that some lives are disposable, that some murders are acceptable losses, that some families don't deserve closure. The prime suspect in this case is still alive. That means there's still time. There's still an opportunity to do what should have been done nearly 50 years ago. to ask the hard questions, to follow the evidence wherever it leads, to build a case and bring charges, to give Carol's family the justice they've been waiting for since 1975, to finally hold someone accountable for taking Carol's life. It's not too late. It's never too late to do the right thing. Carol Ann Rofstad was 21 years old. She was someone's daughter, someone's friend, someone's sorority sister. She had a whole life ahead of her that was stolen in a moment of violence. She died on Christmas Eve, 1975, and her murder has never been solved. But her story doesn't have to end there. We can remember her. We can say her name. We can demand that her case be reopened and properly investigated. We can refuse to let her be forgotten. We can push for justice even after all these years, because Carol deserves that. Her family deserves that. And every victim of unsolved violence deserves that. Carol's family is still waiting for answers. They're still hoping that someday someone will have the courage to tell the truth. And if you're the person responsible for Carol's death, know that the world hasn't forgotten about her. People are still looking for answers. Justice may be slow, but it can still come. That's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe and be kind to each other.